let's transition to this lineup, which is less fascinating, but maybe even more loaded with superstars. And there is MVPs and all-stars and just insane run producers everywhere, Taylor. So I'm going to kick it to you, man. Just give me your thoughts on this Dodgers lineup for this 2024 season.
Matt, my thoughts are on the lineup is that it's pretty good. You've been saying there are all-stars and MVPs on there. I would even go one step further and say I think their top 3 hitters are all probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. And I think that's a pretty good way to start off your lineup against really anybody. And if you're a starting pitcher facing that team, have fun. I mean, that's quite a way to start a game. And on top of that, they have lots of proven depth, which is one of the things I really like to look at for these teams going into the year. And I think they're going to platoon really well. I mean, against right-handed pitchers, like that lineup is massive. Some of the lefties they have, like it's scary. Like if you're a righty with bad lefty splits, maybe take the day off. Like if you're the manager, if you've got maybe that's your bullpen day. Maybe that's when you throw your opener and your follower. Because you
just try throwing with your left arm instead.
Yeah, throw underhand.
Give it a shot.
Dude, throw your bullpen catcher out there. Like don't put one of your good pitchers through that. But for the sake of this exercise, I feel like I should at least try to point out some potential weakness in the lineup, which is hard. It's quite hard to do. I would say if there's anything to poke holes in, it would be that their platoon option versus lefties aren't the best. But at the same time, a lot of teams would love to have Chris Taylor, Manuel Margot, and Miguel Rojas as platoon options on their bench. Like that's a great spot to be. They're almost definitely going to be platooning Margot and Hayward, some combination. Margot could even spell Outman in center because Margot had a 109 WRC plus versus lefties in his career. I think last year was actually a down year for him versus lefties, a little
down
bit.
Year.
But overall, that track record is there. And also, I mean, Teoscar Hernandez is in that lineup, and traditional. I mean, I'm wearing the Mariners hat. I watched a lot of Teoscar last year. I watched a lot of bad Teoscar last year. It was not fun to watch, if I'm being perfectly honest. It was very frustrating, and this is a bit of a digression here, but the middle of that Mariners order was pretty brutal. Like it was just so strikeout prone. It was 3 true outcomes, and most of those true outcomes ended up being strikeouts. But now Teoscar is hitting 7th. Where I don't, Crazy. That risk is fine if you're hitting 7. The problem with the Mariners is, he's hitting 4, and it's like, that's when those strikeouts are going to hurt. But I mean, I would venture to say that you'd be hard pressed to find a team that has a 7 hitter with more potential upside than the Dodgers have with Teoscar. And he has historically mashed lefties. So we might even see him rise in that lineup a little bit in those games versus lefties, depending on how he's playing. Shohei's projected at like 38 to 39 homers. I don't see how he hits less than 40. Do you? That's crazy. Now that he doesn't have to worry about pitching. He's literally, this is like almost a year off for him. Like he just has to hit. Like
he doesn't have to worry about pitching, and he doesn't have to worry about getting walked, because who are you walking? You're walking him to get to Freeman.
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of transitions me into my point. So I built the lineups. Okay, people, I took some time and I built the lineup. So this first one's going to be against righties. The top 3 is obvious. Okay, it just depends on your order. Ideally, you could split up the 2 lefties because both Freeman and Ohtani dropped from their career 940 and above OPS against righties to career lower 800 OPS against lefties. So I mean, that's still pretty damn good, and they're so damn good that it doesn't really matter as much. Okay, plus I mean, you've got Mookie hitting first, which is awesome for any team, which is probably the best leadoff hitter in baseball. So obviously, you got Mookie hitting first. Okay. At 2, I know a lot of people are different, but I like Ohtani at 2. I like the fact that you can protect him on both sides with Mookie and Freeman. Yeah. I don't know if there's a situation where you could walk Ohtani there. You have to pitch to him now. You cannot walk Ohtani if Freeman's behind you. You just can't do it. Okay. Whereas 3, I think there's some intentional passes to get to the rest of the lineup, even though the rest of the lineup is still elite 2. So I got Ohtani 2 and Freeman 3, obviously to give Ohtani that protection too, because I think Freeman's consistent bat to ball approach makes him a better run producer there as well. I think he's a more contact-oriented guy, so he's going to be able to drive in Ohtani and Betts more than Ohtani would be able to drive in Freeman and Betts consistently. So
gap to gap power.
Yes, more of a gap to gap guy. And you listen to Freeman talk about his approach. He's trying to basically hit everything a line drive into the left center gap, So I think that makes him a better 3-hole hitter, especially because he knows those two guys in front of him are going to get on. And then four, I'm going to go Will Smith. I think Muncy could go there, but the lefties got to split at some point. You can't have 3 straight lefties, even though, like you talked about, Taylor, you look at the amount of lefties on this team, 6 of their 9 best hitters are lefties. Like, it's ridiculous. So facing predominantly right-handed pitchers in the MLB with a bench that is predominantly right-handed, making them all very pinch hittable as well. And, I'll talk about it with the lineup against left-handed pitchers as well. They've crafted this lineup beautifully. Okay. I think 5 is where you go Muncy. It's a good spot for him. You could see a lot. I think you could see a lot of 3-run homers out of Muncy this year with the guys in front of him. You're going to see, Muncy being his true outcome self. You could see a lot of 3-run homers. And then 6 is Outman. I mean, he gets so lost in this lineup, how good he was last year. I don't know if people realize it because of how many other names were in that lineup, but 23 homers and 112 OPS plus, a 790 OPS and 16 stolen bases. Hell of a rookie year. 857 OPS in his career versus righties so far. So he is an absolute dog. Plus, he plays really good defense. Like you mentioned, Taylor, Teoscar Hernandez hitting 7. That is a ridiculous 7-hole hitter. He's basically guaranteed. He's guaranteed 25 homers the last half decade. Like, that's insane. Jason Hayward is 8. They've carved out such a great role for him last year. Basically, just face the righties, do your thing. Sure enough, 800 plus OPS last year. And then Gavin Lux, I'm excited to see what he can do at short this year. The fact that he doesn't really need to provide anything offensively is crazy, which I think makes him even more dangerous. So it's going to be an insane lineup against the righties. And then versus the lefties, I'm picking the same top 4. I'm not changing the top 4. I got Betts, Ohtani, Freeman to start off. And then if I have it my way, if I'm Dave Roberts, I'm not changing that top 4 all year. That's my top 4 the entire year. I'm keeping it the exact same the entire year. I'm not moving nobody. That is my top 4. Here, I'm going to move Teoscar up to 5, okay? Because he is a lot better against lefties. And whereas Muncy, he's been really good in his career overall against lefties. The last 2 years, he's been below a 660 OPS against lefties. So it looks like lefties have had, figured out a little way to, have success against Muncy lately. But Teoscar is over 800 plus OPS against lefties. So I'm putting him to 5. I got Muncy at 6. And then I'm going to bump in, I'll put Chris Taylor in there and replace him for whoever you want, Outman or Hayward, whoever you want. And he's got a career 777 OPS against lefties. And then Margot, I would have him at 8. Replace Outman in center or in right with Hayward, whichever, or left in Hayward, wherever you want to put him. Okay. He can play all the outfield spots, because obviously Outman's also struggled with lefties so far in his young career. And obviously Margot has been a lot more solid. And then Luis Rojas, I'd have him hitting 9th. Gavin Lux in his career so far. Did I say Luis?
Yep.
He's the third base coach. Yeah. Miguel Rojas.
Disrespecting Miggy Rowe. One of the best. Sorry, Miggy Rowe.
Sorry, Miggy Rowe. I'm about to give you your love, too. Lux is just a 587 OPS in his career against lefties. He's been terrible against lefties so far. And whereas Rojas isn't a great hitter, he's at least competent against lefties. He is a lot better than Lux. He's got over 700 OPS against lefties. Plus, that defense that he's going to bring as well. So either way you slice it, no matter if it's a righty or if it's a lefty who you're facing off against, this Dodgers lineup is going to be deadly. And you are not going to have very many breaks in this Dodgers lineup. It is going to be absolutely ridiculous to get through.
Yeah, really nowhere to go. It's not going to be fun. And that is an interesting point you bring up about Ohtani hitting 2. I was actually one things I was wondering about, ordering that top 3 is I kind of liked the idea of actually leading off with Freddie and then going Mookie and then going Shohei, just because Freddie has that gap to gap power. I mean, did he set the record for doubles last year?
It was up
close
there.
If he didn't,
he was up there.
I don't remember. I should remember that, but I don't. But you lead off the inning with Freddie on second base. Then you've got Mookie up there that also is going to reduce just the chances of any double plays happening one way or the other. So that was really the only thing I thought about there. But yeah, kind of any way you slice it, it's going to be a pretty good situation. But I like what you brought up more of giving Ohtani like max protection, basically. Yeah, and then following him up with Freddie's bat to ball skills, like you mentioned. I think that is a great play. And then one of the things I had also thought about as you were going through that is because of Ohtani, you're going to lose Will Smith being able to DH in those games. True. Because I'm sure I'm assuming that's what they did a lot last year. Is it would probably be Will Smith in the field for 2 games and then DHing the third, and they're kind of going to lose that a little bit. One of the other things I thought about as well, I know I mentioned that Margot could spell Outman in center. I'm wondering how often they actually do that, because to a certain extent, like letting Outman develop is probably going to be more valuable for you in the long run than getting a marginal increase in like the OPS for that given day. The Dodgers, I think, have a little bit of leeway of like, hey, let's let Lux and Outman get some extra at bats versus lefties. Let's see what they do. Let's let them try and make these adjustments.
You'll be happy with a quality start going up against these guys, that's for sure. Because this is just a ridiculous lineup, a ridiculous team, ridiculous everything